Hello guys, welcome back to Defying Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star Part 329 based on novel. So let's start. On the 6th level of Wu Chi Tower, Luo Feng appeared and immediately surveyed his surroundings. This was a world of mountains and hills and appeared immeasurably vast. The aged voice resonated from the sky high above. You just need to stay alive to pass the 6th level. Then you may enter the 7th level. Warrior Milky Way, you are very close to the peak of Wu Chi Tower. Luo Feng smiled. He just needed to stay alive. What a basic requirement. It seemed to him that this would be an extremely difficult level. Hong. Somewhere far away from Luo Feng, within the world of mountains and hills, the vast expanse of a particular region suddenly started to tremble as though some massive creature was about to emerge from beneath. The land started to crack, giving rise to uneven bumps, and a great many shattered mountain rocks started crumbling and tumbling off in all directions. Gradually, a dark green shadow began to emerge from underground. There really is a beast emerging from underground. Luo Feng muttered softly under his breath. The massive green creature emerged from underground with a loud rumble to fully appear on the surface. It had one of the ugliest faces Luo Feng had ever seen, looking a bit like a dark green toad. However, every inch of its skin seemed to contain an eye. At first glance, it seemed to have at least a few hundred eyes. Roar. The beast tilted its head back and let out an angry roar. Anxiety. Every eye on its body emitted a golden ray of light. The golden rays shot out in all directions, reaching a maximum distance of 100 million kilometers, then dissipating. Based on the amount of golden light, Luo Feng arrived at an immediate verdict on the number of eyes on this beast. 1,000 eyes. The thousand-eyed beast let out a loud howl before looking at Luo Feng. Half of the eyes on his entire body were looking at him. At the same time, its booming voice, which resonated throughout heaven and earth, declared, "It's been so long. So very long. I finally have the chance to emerge once again. Warrior, I will deal with you slowly. Very slowly. The longer you endure, the happier I will be. On this 6th level of Wu Chi Tower, it is difficult. Very difficult to chance upon a single life form." Luo Feng laughed. The longer he could endure. His godly body was now as tall as 100 million kilometers. With such a massive godly body, as well as the rampage he had gone on, scouring and collecting treasures on the 3rd level, especially after that plant lifeform warrior had been annihilated, he had earned himself a pile of automaton-type true treasures. The various automaton-type true treasures, when put to good use via effective combination, would enable him to unleash extremely strong combat power. I will survive, thought Luo Feng. If you seek to force me into giving up on survival, it will be extremely difficult. Roar. Suddenly, the thousand-eyed beast raised its head and gave an earth-shattering, ferocious roar. The surrounding earth broke up into pieces of continents that started floating up. Every continent had a diameter of around 100 million kilometers. At a brief glance, there was at least 1,000 of them. Then these continents rapidly compressed and condensed together, forming numerous black blades. Each blade was around 300,000 kilometers long. 1,000 blades were suspended in void space as the thousand-eyed beast gazed at Luo Feng. Warrior, it said. I hope you have lived long enough. 1,000 black blades, arranged as if to create a military formation, flew so quickly that they sounded as though they were whistling toward Luo Feng. Huh! Luo Feng frowned. He was in trouble. The most difficult opponents to deal with were the ones who had control over a large number of spiritual force weapons. If the opponent had merely one such weapon under its control, there wouldn't be cause for alarm. But controlling 1,000 of these. Any single great being, when controlling a spiritual force weapon, would usually go all out in order to get his spiritual force weapon to unleash its strongest combat power. This was why the common practice was to control one such weapon at any one time. To control 10 or even 100 at a time would only serve to weaken the weapons. If that were the case, it would be much better to control one spiritual force weapon at a time instead. There were some unique circumstances. Luo Feng, for instance, had several other bodies, so naturally, he was able to divide consciousnesses. Every consciousness was fully capable of unleashing an outburst of the strongest combat power. This thousand-eyed beast had been born with the ability to divide out into 1,000 consciousnesses, and every single consciousness was able to release an outburst of the strongest combat power. Thousands of blade shadows, flowing like electricity, instantly enshrouded the sky above Luo Feng, then swooped down quickly, leaving Luo Feng no room for escape. As soon as he managed to ward off the first blade shadow, the other 999 had already moved to surround him. He was entrapped within their blade formation. Bang! Luo Feng executed his warm-up method, and with Blood Ghost blade in his hands, it was as though his entire being was a gigantic blade. With a single bang, he established contact with the other blade and very quickly made use of its strength to fly backward. However, upon being thrown backward, the black blade was quick to recover and gave chase. The other black blades around him also charged toward him. How troublesome! Luo Feng gritted his teeth. Spiritual force weapons and great beings. The difference is that the speed at which these spiritual force weapons move is far faster than great beings. However, to me, this is pointless. Luo Feng started executing his body technique without inhibitions. To him, this form of quantity-based attack was meaningless. If it was a collective attack, Luo Feng might have perhaps been scared and attempted to escape, but this was merely a siege. Every one time, there could, at most, be 8 to 10 blades attacking him. He certainly did not fear such attacks. The 5th level, 6th level, and 7th level. Out of these 3 levels, the 6th level would most probably be the easiest level for this warrior, Milky Way. Black Mist Commander looked at the screen and further commented, Warrior Milky Way's body technique is the most astounding thing about him. And the aspect being tested on the 6th level is mainly one's body technique. Earlier on, a handful already made it past the 6th level, said the silver-armored female commander. With body techniques much stronger than any of them, it would naturally be much easier for Warrior Milky Way to pass the 6th level. She smiled lightly and added, I am just wondering, to what extent of his skill will this warrior force Thousand Eyes to execute? The burly commander by the side also nodded. Warrior Milky Way is taking things so easily. Thousand Eyes must feel as if his dignity is at stake. He will attack even more aggressively and continuously until he can suppress this Milky Way and deprive him of any possibility of retaliation. Then it will rest its case. I am going to place my bet, said the evil-looking beast commander seated at the far right. Thousand Eyes will execute its Thousand Eyes Heartlight in order to defeat Warrior Milky Way. Asterisk 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 asterisk. It was indeed a breeze for Luo Feng. Previously, to hone his body techniques within the virtual space in the space of inheritance, Luo Feng had made use of all possible ways, and in the virtual space, he had sparred with generations of super great beings to learn from their skills. Among them, there was certainly a substantial number who controlled spiritual force weapons. Luo Feng had even tried sparring with opponents like the 3 generations of ancestors. So what could possibly be new to him? His body techniques included various warfare methods to help him deal with close-range combat, spiritual force weapons, and restraining-type weapon. Bang! 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 1,000 blades surrounded Luo Feng, and everything seemed to become a single, blurry, knife-like shadow. This shadow clashed and crashed against the other blades. Crisp sounds of blades knocking against one another were heard, and most of the time, these sounds were made when Blood Ghost blade was colliding with another blade surrounding it. Occasionally, Luo Feng's godly body would receive a blow. But no matter what, he tried his best to situate himself in the most advantageous position. If we are to go on like this, even one era later, you still can't do much harm to me. Luo Feng looked at the far-away thousand-eyed beast. The thousand-eyed beast tried its best to control his weapon. In such a situation, how could it now realize how easy things were for his opponent? It was also shocked. Since the day it had first stepped foot here, Luo Feng was, by far, a warrior with the most powerful body techniques that it had ever encountered. And it seemed like, up till now, it had yet to force this warrior to reach his limit. The thousand-eyed beast let out an angry roar. You little warrior! Suddenly, the attack method of the 1,000 blades laying siege to Luo Feng all at once changed. Previously, all the blades had surrounded him in order to attack, but it was merely a simple coordinated method of attack. But at that moment the blades attacked, it would be 10 blades acting together. At one point, 1,000 blades were divided into 100 teams, and every team had 10 blades working in perfect harmony. Therefore, their collaboration enabled their power to soar by more than 10 times, instantly forcing Luo Feng, who had previously been able to take things easy, into a tight corner. Just what kind of a beast is this? Luo Feng muttered. 1 heart for 1,000 blades. And every blade technique is so powerful. Luo Feng was going crazy as he tried his best to put up resistance. Not only must he dodge and evade, but he also had to attack at the same time. His body technique was truly at a full force outburst. This was it. At times dodging, at times attacking, the perfect combination of attacking and dodging to borrow strength from one another. This was the strongest body technique. At one point in time, it was as though everything within heaven and earth was falling apart. Hong. Long. 9 days path was a blade technique that was often executed. Once this blade technique was executed, every blade in the surrounding would be immediately ripped apart, bombarded, and then thrown off into the distance. At that time, the entire 1,000 knife formation was thrown into a complete mess. Anywhere Luo Feng traversed would be bombed and torn apart, leaving behind destroyed lands. Furthermore, he was relying on borrowed strength when dodging. Thus, he was completely in control, as well as placed in a totally advantageous position. I was wrong. The evil beast commander watching the scene on screen was shocked as he exclaimed, even with Thousand Eyes executing Thousand Eyes Heartlight, it still could not defeat Warrior Milky Way. Earlier on, during the fight, he merely seemed to be dodging the attacks. Who would have expected him to incorporate his blade technique into his body technique? This had allowed his body technique to attain an even higher level of strength. Attacking was the best form of defense. One powerful attack could lend strength to a dodge, making it easier by 10 to 100 times. Yet, on the other hand, any mistake in attack would bring about a nightmare. That was why it was extremely difficult to incorporate an attack into a body technique. It required a great deal of experience and someone who was extremely gifted to be able to refine and create such a body technique. Even Luo Feng himself, who had spent more than 8 million eras to create this body technique, was extremely proud of it. Judging by the accomplishments of generations of heirs of Duandong River, even Luo Feng felt that his ability to comprehend was extremely high. Executing Thousand Eyes Heartlight. Thousand Eyes must be going crazy after being cornered into such a desperate situation. The 4 commanders were discussing among themselves. As expected, even if Thousand Eyes Heartlight was executed, Thousand Eyes would only gain a slight advantage, the burly commander said. There was no way he could defeat that warrior Milky Way. His body technique was at the level of Law Master and had achieved perfection to become absolutely formidable. In the world of mountains and hills within the 6th level of Wu Chi Tower. Warrior, you are indeed very impressive, said the thousand-eyed beast. Even I am unable to defeat you. You are truly one of the most powerful warriors I have ever come across. Maybe, you will be able to reach the peak of Wu Chi Tower. The dark green, thousand-eyed beast suddenly bore a hole and penetrated deep within the ground with a loud crash. Then he disappeared from Luo Feng's line of sight. The 1,000 blades in Luo Feng's surroundings instantly became countless flowing lights that flew out into the distance. Thereafter, they landed with loud crashes to become mountains and hills. Luo Feng heaved a sigh of relief. Such madness. 1,000 blades all wielded with one heart, Luo Feng was muttering to himself. His energy outburst, from the start until the end, is comparable to mine. Yet, at the very end, he could release an outburst at this level. Luo Feng was also aware of this. It was that he was weak, but his opponent was strong. His opponent might have just been maintaining this energy. The true identity of this opponent might have been a true god of void space. At that moment, a streak of light descended from the sky and enshrouded Luo Feng. Instantly, Luo Feng disappeared from the world found on the 6th level of Wu Chi Tower. On the 7th floor of Wu Chi Tower was an ice-cold world. A nearly transparent ice mountain was close in front of Luo Feng. The 7th floor. Luo Feng was excited. There are 9 floors in Wu Chi Tower in total. The first 8 floors are the tests, and if I can get to the 9th floor, I'll succeed. The more Luo Feng thought about it, the more Luo Feng was convinced that there was a huge secret hidden on the 9th floor of Wu Chi Tower. There are only 2 hazards left. The one on the 7th and the 8th floor. Luo Feng looked around warily. No matter how powerful he was, he needed to be cautious. The closer he got to approaching the final victory, the more cautious he needed to be. Space ripples spread in the sky where cold air was spreading, and a giant single eye appeared. A godly eye. Luo Feng was dazed. The 3rd floor featured the final death trap on Wu Chi Tower. It had the same godly eye, which produced a powerful mind shock. Why does the 7th floor have a godly eye as well? Is it also a mind shock? Luo Feng was hesitant. But it must be the same as the 3rd floor. There should at least be something different. Wang. The godly eye gave out a blurry golden light, covering Luo Feng. Soldier Milky Way. The ancient voice was echoing in Luo Feng's ears. If you pass the test of the godly eye, you'll enter the 8th floor of Wu Chi Tower, which will be your final test in Wu Chi Tower. The ancient voice faded. The blurry golden light gave out a forceful mind shock, irritating Luo Feng. It was indeed a mental shock as powerful as the one on the 3rd floor of Wu Chi Tower when the test there had ended. Mind shock. Luo Feng looked up at the godly eye. He had to take it directly without running away. It was invisible, so there was no way he could hide from it. He had to resist it directly, mind versus mind. Why does the 7th floor still have a mind shock? Luo Feng was perplexed. Then he stopped thinking and tried to fight that mental shock with all his power. The 4 leaders stared at the screen. That soldier Milky Way's mind is very strong, so it should be easy for him to pass the 7th floor. The voice of the towering leader was rumbling. Let's see how much he can learn from the godly eye technique. Godly eye technique was created by Majesty of Godly King, said the Black Mist leader. It's a special technique, and in the world of Jinn, only the special ones can be sealed. Those that have special contributions and those with great potential can be bestowed. Okay, 6 soldiers made it to the 7th floor of Wu Chi Tower. 5 of them failed, and 1 of them succeeded and made it to the 8th floor. The worst of them didn't even finish the 1st volume, and the best finished the 3rd volume. Let's see how many volumes this Milky Way can learn. Luo Feng didn't know that. He was fighting the mind shock using all his strength. Sometimes, he looked at the godly eye in the sky, and sometimes, he looked at the nearly transparent ice mountain around him. I'm just supposed to fight the mind shock like this? Luo Feng thought. What's the limit of this godly eye? Even though Luo Feng had strong willpower, everything had its limits. If that godly eye attack went beyond his limit, he would pass out and be transported out. It's a great chance to sharpen my willpower, though, thought Luo Feng. There are 8 levels of hazards in Wu Chi Tower. I don't think the 7th floor will stop me. Luo Feng kept resisting it. The blurry golden light covered everything below. Luo Feng looked as if he were wearing a golden cloth. The mind shock was getting more and more powerful, and it reached the level of the limit of a true god in no time. But that was nothing to Luo Feng. Huh! Luo Feng glanced at the ice mountain. What's that? On the surface of the ice mountain, ancient characters appeared. They were all characters from the ancient civilization, and they covered the mountain. The characters were from the 1st volume of Godly Eye Technique. Godly Eye Technique. Luo Feng was exhilarated after reading the first line. Haha. All the floors after the 3rd level have prizes. Although there are hazards as well, there are lots of prizes. The 7th floor gives techniques directly. Secret techniques were different from techniques. Techniques at the Universe Knight level didn't mean anything to Universe Masters, and with great beings becoming more powerful, they needed to create techniques that were suitable for them. Those techniques at a lower level didn't help them at all. However, secret techniques were different. Duan Mie, Dong Hua, and Undying River were all secret techniques, and they were universally useful. A powerful secret technique like Undying River could certainly boost someone's power. Secret techniques were invaluable even in the ancient civilization. Luo Feng had obtained a whole set of Duan Mie before, but under the restrictions of the original mind, he had only been able to read the first 3 volumes. However, once someone became a true god of void space, he would be able to read the latter material of Duan Mie. While someone was only a universe master or a true god, Duan Mie could help them trump many godly power burning techniques, and it would help them remain at an advantage after they reached a higher level. This advantage would remain. In the world of Jin, only the first several levels of godly power burning techniques were spread. I got a secret technique, Luo Feng said, elated. Let me see which secret technique it is. Does Duan Dong River have it also? Duan Dong River only had 1 inheritor for each generation. However, His Majesty the Godly King had built an entire superpower. Perhaps those techniques owned by His Majesty the Godly King were not owned by Duan Dong River. Luo Feng looked carefully. As for the mental shock, it was nothing to Luo Feng. Godly Eye technique is a technique for the mind. Luo Feng was overjoyed. A great gain. A great chance. He had the Duan Dong River inheritance, and he was also familiar with the ancient civilization, so he knew exactly how important Godly Eye technique was. Godly Eye technique was a secret technique using the mind. Perhaps the ancestral teachers from Duan Dong River had been able to create 3 or 4 volumes, but if the ancestral teachers were proficient in it, they wouldn't have been able to create them at an exceptional level. 3 or 4 volumes were nothing to a powerful group or an inheritance. Only those that were complete, those techniques that were exceptional across the entire ancient civilization, were useful. Like Duan Mie, Dong Hua, and Undying River, for example. Luo Feng read the introduction of the first volume of Godly Eye technique. Willpower. Every great being has willpower. Some have stronger willpower, while others have weaker willpower. When a weak being dies, everything will go away. However, when a great being dies, his willpower will remain. A drop of blood or scales. All of them will contain great mental pressure. When great beings are still alive, they will fight each other, and when the minds fight each other, great beings can toy with their enemies' heads. If the willpower between the 2 competitors is too large, the stronger one could put the weaker one into a coma, rendering him powerless. Luo Feng nodded his head. A great being had a soul, a consciousness, and willpower. If their souls were destroyed, they would be dead forever. As for one's consciousness, it was built on the soul. The more powerful someone's soul was, the greater his consciousness would be. When 2 great beings fought each other, if there was a huge gap of consciousness between them, like between true gods and universe knights, the stronger could crush the weakest soul easily. However, willpower was different. Willpower wasn't correlated with souls. Even if someone had a weak soul and a weak consciousness, he could still possess mighty willpower. When someone was weak, willpower didn't help much. The best it could do would be to resist illusions. And when someone died, his willpower would dissipate and be rendered useless. However, when someone became a true god of void space, or even more superior, willpower would become of great use. Even when a supreme being died, his willpower would remain, such as in the drop of godly blood Luo Feng had. However, even in the ancient civilization, some great beings only knew how to use willpower through primitive means, they didn't know how to utilize it in a more flexible way. Willpower was not material. So how could one use it? Only supreme beings who comprehended willpower could create some techniques based on willpower. They were not like burning power techniques. Even true gods of void space could comprehend the first level of a godly power burning technique. As for a willpower technique, even eternal true gods couldn't comprehend them. Only those who mastered chaos laws could comprehend them. Godly Eye technique was a secret technique created by His Majesty the Godly King. Only those whose willpower has reached the level of true gods of void space can practice Godly Eye technique. It's kind of like practicing hearts. Luo Feng was reading the first volume of Godly Eye technique. Other than some of the practice guides of secret techniques, there were also guides on how to improve one's willpower. Based on the material, one needed to focus on his heart, analyze it, learn more about it, and keep improving oneself. The Godly Eye kept emanating blurry golden light, and the willpower shock inside kept being strengthened. It had already surpassed the limit true god level. There was a huge gap between limit true gods and true gods of void space. However, Luo Feng couldn't still easily resist it. Characters kept appearing on the ice mountain, yet this was still the first volume. Apparently, it was a long volume. Then characters stopped showing up, and the first volume of Godly Eye Technique was shown on the ice mountain in its entirety. It took a long time to show only the first volume. If someone's willpower isn't stronger than limit true gods, he might not be able to read the first volume. Luo Feng sighed. He saw another ice mountain in the distance, and characters began to appear on its surface as well. Oh! The second volume of Godly Eye Technique. Luo Feng was amazed and began to memorize them. Like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.